Welcome to Train Signal and welcome to Windows Server 2008 Application Infrastructure. I am your host, Coach Culbertson. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing in this particular video. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown about your instructor and Train Signal itself. We're going to talk about the overall scope of the course so you can know what to expect. We'll talk about what's covered in this course, the Globomantic scenario, and then I'll also talk to you about what we're going to be building, what I'm going to show you how to build in this course. We'll kind of crash through that real quick, and then we're going to roll on into the next video. Okay, let's get started about this. Just a little bit about me. I have, as you see here, a whole bunch of Microsoft certifications, MCITP, MCTS, and yada yada. You don't care much about that stuff. You just expect, right? I did serve a 2-year tour of duty as an inner city high school teacher, though, in Chicago. Where I taught computers and also broke up fights. And I've also done a lot of corporate work, done a lot of consulting, as well as a lot of training in the classroom. And over the last 10 years or so, I've launched a couple hundred careers. Now, in terms of Train Signal, let me just kind of prep you a little bit. At Train Signal, we have a very casual training method that really teaches real skills first. We want to make sure you can do most of what we teach you, okay? Having the theoretical knowledge is really good and will help you pass exams and such and whatnot, but you need to be able to do something. We really want you to be able to, after watching our videos, go out and make some of this stuff work. So we always try to do scenario-based training when we can to answer the question, why does this change my life? And that's really why we write these kind of these crazy scenarios. We're going to be talking about our Globomantic scenario here in just a little bit to kind of give us a framework and why we might want to be using some of these technologies. So that's just a little bit about us. Let's talk about what's covered in this course. First of all, the next video is going to be how to make believe you have more servers than you really do. We're going to be building a Hyper-V server, and we're going to be creating virtual machines. It's very cool stuff. Virtualization, as I'm sure you already know, is really the buzzword for the next coming decade of IT work. Then we're going to talk about Look Mom, No Hands, where I'm going to be providing you how to create a Windows deployment server. Now, Windows deployment services, if you've ever used Symantec Ghost or Altiris or any other imaging application, you're really going to like Windows deployment services. It's built into Server 2008 natively as a server role. So we're actually going to be doing Hyper-V and deployment stuff all the way throughout this course. So you're going to be seeing concepts in these two videos come back over and over and over again. Then I'm going to talk to you about how to build your very own web server fun. We're going to be talking about how to create an application server, implement IIS, as well as also setting up a SharePoint site. So it's a pretty packed video, okay? A lot of stuff in there. Then we're going to talk about web server management and setting up who gets to do what with a website. The new IIS 7.0 has some fantastic features that I'm going to show to you. I'm going to show you how to implement them and get you some down and dirty techniques to provide your web developers with their very own websites and the ability to manage them so they're not come crying to you every time they need to make some small little change. Then I'm going to talk to you about how to keep your stuff safe from the bad guys. This is where I'm going to tell you how to implement SSL. SSL implementation, once you have a security certificate, is really super easy. Also, we're going to find out in this video that SharePoint Services comes with its own certificate, but there are some hitches with the certificate, and we'll talk about those in that video. I'm going to talk to you also about terminal services. There's a huge amount of improvements with terminal services in Server 2008. I think there's going to be some stuff that are going to be really exciting to you. Then we're going to talk about remote applications, or remote apps, if you will. And we're going to be installing Microsoft Office on a server and then creating the ability to access Microsoft Office on that server from more or less anywhere. So there's some really good stuff in there. We're going to also talk about high availability, and we're going to be talking about terminal services, load balancing, network load balancing, and clustering a little bit in the Give Your People What They Want service video. And then I'm going to tell you how to build your own little TV station. I'm going to show you a complete implementation of Windows Media Services. I'm going to show you how to publish and stream stuff over your network. But then we're also going to do a little experiment in this video we're going to show you how to do clustering, but it is kind of an experiment, as you'll see in that video. And there's some questions on whether or not it will work and why it won't work or why will it work or whatever. But it's really kind of a fun thing. It's going to get you an interesting perspective on testing stuff out to see if it works first before you start telling your boss, yeah, hey, sure, we can do this and this and this with clustering. And yeah, clustering, as much as Microsoft has improved it, there are still some hitches in clustering, okay? And we're going to talk about those hitches when we get to that video. Then I'm going to talk to you about certification and how it's really not that scary. And if you've seen our other Server 2008 Train Signal videos, this is probably going to be some repeated information. If this is your first Train Signal experience, you probably should watch that one and get your head wrapped around the new certification process. Then I've got 2 exam prep videos where basically I just give you some basically a technical overview of some concepts and some information that you may be tested over, you may not. But I will talk to you in video 12 about automated activation. And in the exam objectives, they talk about the volume activation management tool and the key management service. And I go through an overview of both of those technologies. Now, the technologies that are talked about in video 12 require a purchase of a multiple activation key from Microsoft or a key management services key from Microsoft. So I just want you to know that you don't have to purchase the keys to go through the course. That's not necessary. But they are concepts that are covered on the exam, at least the exam objectives, because I did write this course, by the way, according to the exam objectives. I tried to provide you as complete coverage as I possibly could on each one of the exam areas. So that, just so you know, going in, that was really my guide in terms of what to cover, what not to cover. We really kept the scope of this course based upon the Microsoft exams as they are posted on Microsoft's website. Rather than, demonstrate all that stuff and, go out and buy multiple activation keys and all that, I just provided you a general overview of the technologies so you know what they are, just in case they happen to show up on your exam. I have also provided a storage review. I basically put together a short video that provides you a quick reminder of some primary storage technologies that might show up here and there on your exam. So I wanted to make sure that we had as complete exam coverage as possible. But I do need to tell you right up front that if you have taken your A+ or your Network Plus or Server Plus, the stuff on this particular video is going to be all review for you. Okay, I've only thrown it in there because it was included on the objectives and we want to try to be as complete as we could. Now, I do talk about one newer technology, iSCSI, a little bit on that particular video. If you have a lot of experience in the field, you might want to fast forward the video to the point where you hit the iSCSI stuff, okay? But it's just a quick little storage just to remind you of the basic primary concepts of server storage, all right? All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about our Globomantic scenario next. You are the newly hired system administrator for a new startup company called Globomantics, which is a stock brokerage. Hank Richardson, our founder and CEO, is a rough and tumble Texan who isn't the most tech savvy, but knows the value of having good people who know the ropes when it comes to computers. Now, I should probably also tell you that when Hank sees something and he likes it, he wants it. And you, as the IT person, get to implement that. So you're going to be adding application services to the network. In this video, including a Hyper-V server for most of the new services. We're going to find out that Globomantics is actually a little bit poor because Hank's been out buying stuff. And so we're going to need to implement some of these services on one physical machine. Now, fortunately, Hyper-V server is a very cool new technology that is going to allow you to run multiple operating systems on a single box. We'll talk more about that in the videos, but then I'm going to show you how to add a Windows deployment server to easily install additional servers. We're going to be creating an application server, and when you see the word application server in terms of Server 2008, I want you to think a web server on steroids, all right? That's going to be hosting SharePoint services. So I'm going to show you how to implement SharePoint Services 3.0 in this series as well. You're going to be adding a terminal services server farm to host Microsoft Office, kind of a fun thing, and also a Windows Media Server to stream video. Oh, and I probably should mention before I get too far here that not only are you just going to implement a server, but also a server farm. I'm going to show you how to do network load balancing with terminal services for high availability. All right, so some fantastically cool stuff. I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed building this series with this scenario. These technologies are some of my favorite things to teach and to work with. So let me show you what we're going to be building. To start off with, I need to let you know that I do have one single Active Directory domain services domain controller already up and functioning, okay? So if you're going to be playing along at home, you're going to need at least 2 physical machines, all right? You're going to need a domain controller that's also going to be acting as the primary DNS. Now the domain that I'm going to be using is globomantics.com, and the functional level for the domain and the forest was actually Server 2008. Now, the second physical machine that I'm going to be adding in this video series is going to be a Hyper-V machine, and we're going to name it, well, Hyper-V. So I'm going to show you how to create a Hyper-V machine from scratch. And these are really the only 2 physical machines that I have all throughout the course. Everything else that I'm going to be showing you how to do all the way throughout are virtual machines that live on this one Hyper-V machine. We're going to be building a Deploy 1 for our deployment services, a Media 1 server for our SharePoint services, a Terminal Services server, but we're also going to be adding in another Terminal Services virtual machine for a little mini server farm, if you will. It's going to be using network load balancing. We're also going to be building a separate media server as well for experimentation. The nice thing about using Hyper-V is that you can build multiple servers really fast, really easily, especially if you have a deployment server out there. So we're going to be doing a lot of Hyper-V work. We're going to be doing a lot of deployment services work in this series. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. It's going to be a lot of fun for you, I think. And you're really going to walk away from this course with some solid skills that you can utilize not only just in virtualization world, but also deploying servers and creating duplicate servers for network load balancing and clustering. So this is what we're going to be building. And again, if you're playing along at home, all you really need is 2 boxes, okay? Or if you're really wild and crazy, you could actually get away with 1 box. You could actually create another virtual machine. Let's say you have like an 8 gigabyte machine, then you could actually create a virtual machine that has your Active Directory domain services on it. Now, before I get too crazy here, there are a couple of things that I'm kind of assuming that you know how to do. First of all, I'm assuming that you know how to do Active Directory domain services already. I'm not really going to be doing a lot of ADDS stuff in this video series. I've got a few user groups and a couple of practice users out there, but not a lot. Okay, I mean very, very minimal Active Directory work in this video. We do a little bit where it's necessary. I have an organizational unit for NY users. I have a group for sales, and I have 1 sales user that I use to practice. That's really all that you're going to need, okay? So 1 OU, 1 group, and 1 user just to test stuff out with. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of lying to you. I got 2. Okay, I got a web developer user and a sales user, and that's really pretty much it. So not a lot of Active Directory domain services stuff. I'm assuming that you know that. Now, if you don't have a good grasp on Active Directory domain services, can you still watch the video and get stuff out of it? Absolutely. Absolutely you can. But after you watch this video, you may want to go back and go buy a copy of my Active Directory domain services video. Okay, so I just want to let you know that even if you know very little about Active Directory stuff, you can still watch this course, still get some great stuff out of it. I'm also assuming that you know probably a little bit about DNS. You know about the material that's covered on 7642, the network infrastructure exam. And again, if you don't have a lot of DNS background, if you don't have a lot of that stuff, don't worry too much about it. You can still get stuff out of this course. But again, you might want to go back and grab my buddy Ed Lieberman's video, also available from Train Signal for network infrastructure. Okay, so if those are 2 areas you don't have background in, you might want to go back and review those. Okay, So enough of that. So here's the deal. I mean, you've seen what we're going to be doing. I've covered with you the topic areas, and I've shown you what we're going to build. So how about it? Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Let's go ahead and let's move on to the next video, and let's get this started.